Welcome back to the channel where I provide regular cricket content on interesting topics. In today's video I wanted to go through some of the players who could have left a lasting impression on the game but ultimately failed to do so. There are a variety of reasons why these players didn't fulfill their potential, with some it is their fault, others not. So let's sit back and have a look at 5 of the biggest, and sometimes saddest wastes of cricketing talent in the history of our game. Let's get started. Number 5, Vinod Kambli. I have previously dedicated an entire video to the meteoric rise and sudden fall of the Indian prodigy. Feel free to check that out at your leisure, I will put a link in the description. But for the purpose of today's video I will focus on how Kambli's talent, which seemed destined for superstardom, sadly went to waste. When a certain Sachin Tendulkar made headlines for being part of a 664-run partnership in school cricket, it was Kambli at the other end. Vinod also famously hit his first delivery in the Ranji Trophy for 6, signalling what many thought was the start of a special professional career. When he was picked for the Indian Test side it seemed like he was going to fulfill that potential. Kambli came out of the blocks in Test cricket hot. In his first 7 tests he racked up 2 centuries and amazingly also 2 double centuries. In fact, in his first year of Test cricket he averaged a staggering 113. India and the world thought we were watching a star develop. But alas, it wasn't to be. Whereas Tendulkar went on and fulfilled his potential, his schoolboy batting partner's star would burn out almost immediately. Many think that the beginning of the end was when the West Indies found he had a weakness against the short ball. But Kambli's problems were amplified by well-documented indiscipline and an obsession with the width of his bat handle, which had 9 grips on at one time. After his breakout year he wouldn't score another century in Test cricket again and would only average 24 for the following 2 years. We were all left wondering what could have been from someone who amazingly left the Test arena with an average of 54.2 but faded into obscurity. Number 4, Barry Richards. At the start of this video I explained that there would be varying reasons behind why I considered some of the talents wasted. With Richards we can categorically chalk his inclusion up to not being his fault. When I prepared my greatest South African side of all time I was bombarded with comments chastising me for not including Richards. The reason I didn't was that he only played 4 test matches and that's what lands him on this list today. In his 4 tests which he did play, Richards dazzled and showed the world what he was capable of. He scored 200s and 250s in what was a demolition job of the Australian side by the South Africans. But then came South Africa's exclusion from international sport, so he never played another test. Of course Richards was a desirable free agent in the first-class game, and plied his trade all over the world with excellent results. Such were his talents that he once scored 325 runs himself in one day, and also there were tales of him playing an innings purposely with just his leading edge. But ultimately we were left wondering what could have been, questioning if we had been robbed of one of the greats of Test cricket. The unfortunate situation also led to idiots like me excluding him from conversations to which his talent clearly deserved. Number 3, Simon Jones. Like Richards, Jones can feel hard done by for being included in this rather critically titled video. For Jones did not waste his talent himself, it was taken away from him. There may be viewers of the channel who have never heard of Simon Jones, and indeed may be wondering if I have lost the plot. But let me tell you something, before injury took his career away from him, he was some bowler. The 2005 Ashes series is one which is part of English cricket folklore, with tales of Freddie Flintoff running through the Aussies and fond memories of Steve Harmison's famous slower ball. But it was Jones for me who was the star bowler, and this was represented by him comfortably topping the English averages. He could deliver the ball at pace and with accuracy, but it was his ability to bowl reverse swinging deliveries which reminded me of Pakistan greats of years gone by. But persistent and tragic injuries cut his career short to just 18 test matches. England fans were left wondering if his bad luck with injury would prolong our search for a world-class fast bowler. Number 2, Adam Voges. If I asked you prior to watching this video, who has the second highest test batting average behind Donald Bradman, who would you say? Steve Smith or Graham Pollock perhaps? But no, it is little-known Western Australian called Adam Voges. Voges finds himself on this list due to the fact the Australian selectors did not get around to picking the prolific run scorer until he was 35 years old. He still holds the record for the oldest batsman to make a century on debut. He left all observers wondering how he could have been missed for so many years. Voges would go on and represent his country in 20 test matches over a 2-year period, before retiring from international cricket at the understandable age of 37. He had scored 1,500 runs including 500s at an incredible average of 61.9. What is interesting about this selection oversight by the Aussies was that they had even been warned. Voges had played off and on in the one-day team and had been successful there without being selected on a consistent basis. He had averaged 46 at a strike rate of nearly 90 in one-day games, but still this wasn't enough to keep his place. So despite being a prolific scorer in first-class cricket and an excellent performer in the one-day game, the selectors continued to ignore him. He came in, averaged over 60 and then retired, showing how the Australian selection panel had wasted what could have been a long and sparkling career. Number 1, Mohammad Amir and Mohammad Asif. I am cheating in a way here, including two players in the number 1 spot. But perhaps dishonesty is an appropriate way to open this section when talking about two of the most disgraced players in the history of cricket. Mohammad Amir and Mohammad Asif are of course well known for their part in probably the biggest match-fixing case of the history of Test cricket. But it is important to remember quite how good the two young fast bowlers were before their bans. Mohammad Asif burst onto the scene with a string of impressive performances, to the point that praise was heaped upon him from all corners. Inzamam ul-Haq once said, "Asif has immaculate length control and a natural ability to swing the ball both ways. He is also quick to spot a weakness in batsmen and work on it." In his pre-ban career he rose to number 2 in the World Test rankings and was part of the 2007 World Test 11. Mohammad Amir was almost as impressive. In 2010 as just an 18-year-old, he took 33 wickets at an average of 22. Kevin Peterson once said he was the hardest bowler he ever faced. With these two at the helm it seemed as if Pakistan fast bowlers were going to rule the world once more. But alas, the lure of easy money became too tempting, and during the Pakistan tour of England both accepted bribes to bowl no balls. I actually blame the more experienced Salman Butt for the incident more than the two bowlers, but that is perhaps a story for another day. The end result of the max-fixing convictions was that the cricket world ended up with two of the biggest wastes of natural talent the game has ever seen. Amir would eventually return and play for Pakistan but was never the same bowler. Asif would never play for his country again. This tragic story concludes the list with him at joint number 1. There you have it. That is my list of those who for one reason or another didn't fulfill their destined talent. Another player who I could have included was Colin Croft, who of course in his late 20s incurred a ban from West Indian cricket for joining a rebel tour of South Africa. One could argue that this self-imposed exile was a gigantic waste of his talents. Who else have I missed? Are there any other players who by one way or another didn't get to fulfill their potential? I would love to hear their stories, so fire away in the comments. The more obscure the better. I really enjoy some of the knowledge which is shared by you guys in the comments. There are some serious cricket brains out there. As ever, thanks for watching and participating everyone.